Hi there, thank you for joining me on this video today where we are going to have a discussion around operational security at the business level. And I've got to say this, it doesn't matter how much focus you've put on security at the business level. And this video is aimed at exec, board level, management. This isn't going into the technical details or anything like that. But it doesn't matter how much importance you put on security, your operational security, your IT security, within your business, you're probably not putting enough focus on it. Now, that may sound a little bit strange, but we're going to go into some details around some data breaches that have occurred in Australian businesses. There's been two, which we're going to be covering off hopefully pretty quickly, because there is a lot of detail around these two breaches. But we're going to try and just cover off this and not go into the full details of the actual breach. So let's just jump over to my screen here. Okay, so Medibank is going to be the first one that we're going to have a chat about. Now, Medibank is an Australian health insurer, and they suffered a hack and a data breach back in 2022. Okay, so we're not going to go into the full details of this, but 9.7 million records or individuals were impacted with this data breach, and we're talking passport numbers, date of birth, address details, all that type of private information that was actually released on the dark web. Now, what happened? What I want to cover is not so much what happened originally. So it was literally an IT guy who was working for an contracting firm to Medibank that stored the username password details, went home. Those password username details were synchronized because they were using the same web browser. It was synchronized to their private computer. They suffered some type of malware breach or a malware attack, and those details were stolen, or the hacker got access to those details, and they used those details to get into the system. So how did they get into the system? Well, one of the key findings that has come out of a commission report about this is the Medibank didn't actually require multi-factor authentication within the network, essentially. So using that username and password, the hacker was then able to use a VPN to gain access to Medibank's network. Now, once they're in that network, they could do whatever they want. And that's exactly what they did. For around 3 weeks, between 3 and 4 weeks, this hacker was in the network and no one knew or did anything about it. And over that time in the network, the hacker was able to basically, if you could imagine, just drive around without any controls whatsoever. And he was able to find out, this hacker was able to find out there was a Mars database that contained all this personal information. And he was able to find some information about this, the structure of that database and where it was, and able to get into that database and drain away the data. And so as we can see, from between August 25th, the 25th of August, and 13th of October, this hacker was able to literally drain 520 gigabytes of data out of that system. So they were able to take this information, copy it down, and then once they had that information, they then were able to do whatever they want with that information, and they ended up releasing that onto the dark web. They did try to blackmail the organization into, I think, a $15 million payout, basically to say that they won't actually release, you give me $15 million and I won't release this information. And the Medibank worked with the Australian Federal Police and different agencies, and they said we're not paying the money. Anyway, so one of the key things here is not so much that the hacker, well, it is also the lack of multi-factor authentication, but the other thing is the hacker was able to literally get into the system and do whatever he wanted without being stopped, without some type of ICT security going, what's going on? Let's put a stop to this. Because there were alerts. There were so many alerts going off, it's not funny. And yet what you can see is this hacker kept tripping these wires. Alerts were triggered and they weren't triaged. They weren't actually done any. No one did anything about the alerts that were going off. And over that course of 3-4 week period, this hacker was able to extract all this information. So on October the 11th, so what have we got? 13th of October, I think, is when it was essentially stopped. But so 2 days earlier, almost 2 months after the hacker first logged onto the systems, Medibank security operations team responded to a high severity incident. It was an alert that files been modified to exploit a vulnerability. So their antivirus, their tool that is used within the system, put alert up going, just wait, there's this file that's been modified to exploit a vulnerability, a known vulnerability. And then they called in the digital forensics team, which was called threat intelligence, to investigate what's going on. And that is when they found out that there was suspicious volumes of data that had been extracted from that network. And at that stage, Medibank was not aware that customer data had been accessed by a threat actor and exfiltrated from its systems. So they didn't know that someone had actually got into the system, and they didn't know that that data had been extracted. So 520 gigabytes of data, half a terabyte of data extracted from this network. Now, what we also learn through this commission report is it wasn't just this hacker got access to username and password and got into the system, and Medibank didn't know that there was any issues prior to this. We actually find out that between 2018, so 4 years earlier, and the lead up to when the actual breach occurred, consultants from both KPMG and PwC had repeatedly warned Medibank to lift their game around informational security. So for a 4-year period, the IT reports and audits coming back from these organizations, and I've been involved in IT audits before, as working with an ASX listed organization, you get audited every year or every 2 years as part of an IT audit. And so Medibank were made aware that there was some insufficiencies around their information security. They also had internal audits that highlighted some of these major issues, security issues. And what they found included insecure and weak password requirements. And so this was actually done by threat intelligence. The people that got called into once the incident occurred, they found that there was insecure and weak password requirements. Now, this was in March and September 2018 and November 2020. So again, 4 years before and 2 years prior, they were made aware that there was these security issues. KPMG audit in 2021, so basically a year before, it warned that multi-factor authentication had not been implemented for privileged users when accessing particular systems, backend portals, and supporting servers. So there was this lack that was known, and yet nothing was done about it. And not only that, there was not only this lack of security measures put in place that were known, but you've got to wonder about these triggers, these security triggers, these alerts that were raised, and yet nothing done about those alerts. And what we can take out of this for our own business, our own environments, is making sure that we have the right security measures in place, but not only have the security measures, but have the alerting going on so that when those breaches occur, the alerts are triggered and someone's doing something about those alerts. Now, this article, sorry, we're not going to even get into that one really. That basically documents that MFA was the major issue, major flaw. One of the things I did see in this is the potential for big fines. And so each contravention of the fine each contravention of this breach comes with a maximum penalty of $2.2 million. And when you calculate it to 9.7 million customers, the potential maximum fine is more than $21 trillion against this organisation. Now, whether that is held up or not, who knows? But I personally don't think it would be a $21 million fine, but they certainly could. They certainly could be suffering some pretty major setbacks when it comes to fines. APRA did hit them with a $250 million punishment for the breach. Last year, it made them set aside $250 million as an insurance against the issues relating to this data breach. Now, Optus also suffered a breach in 2022. They had an issue where an API that they had allowed access to sensitive information. Now, this API was actually an open API for months. I believe it was like 3 months. This open API was available. And if we go down, we can see that what was actually available was driver's license details, date of births, phone numbers, and home addresses of the customers. This was pretty major. Again, it was nearly 10 million records that were taken, and the cost essentially on this from a time perspective was massive, because there was 2.4 million customers, I think it was, or 2.1 million customers that actually had to then go get new licenses, driver's licenses, go get them replaced. And I think they're also something to do with their passports as well at the time. So there was a major cost on time, resources of different departments because of this breach. Cost was around $140 million. I believe they had set aside $140 million allocated to that to fix it up. I know that they are fighting some cases against them, or some fines. Now, the takeaways from Allens. Now, Allens is an international law firm, and some of the takeaways they've got from these cases are really quite interesting. There's been 4 class actions brought against these 2 companies, 1 against Optus and 3 against Medibank. And the common theme between these claims is the defendant failed to comply with regulations regarding data handling and cybersecurity. So there was a failure to comply, but then also those failures amounted to breaches of contractual promises and privacy policies, misleading representations, and or breaches of continuous disclosure obligations. So what Alan says about this is really quite something that we should take note of, and that is, it's one thing that these issues occurred, but the other thing is you've got to be very careful about what you're actually telling your customers when you're gathering information. Because they do say at the bottom here, and I'll scroll down a bit so I think my ugly mug is in the way. Companies should exercise caution in relation to what they say about privacy, protection of personal information, and cybersecurity readiness and resilience in contracts, policies, including privacy policies, disclosure documents, and marketing material. So what they're saying is you've got to be careful about what you're actually saying you're doing. You've got to be careful about what you're saying and how you're protecting that data. Because the cases leveled at Optus and Medibank seem to be potentially, they've come and made contractual agreements or in their policies, procedures, or policies and information they're giving to their customers, which potentially were broken because of the data breach and how it occurred. So what can we do at a business level, and what can we do? As I said, this is more aimed at the board of directors, C-level, executives, management. And one of the things the Australian government have done, if you go to cyber.gov.au, you will see this section here for resources for business and government. There's a section called Essential 8. Now, this is aimed at from small business right the way through to government. And I do recommend, you don't have to be IT to have a look at this. This is actually aimed not at IT. This is aimed at the decision makers. This is aimed at board of directors at your C-level. And if you just jump in there, you can see, if we jump over to the 8 explained. The essential 8 is the mitigation strategies that constitute 8 strategies. patch management or patching the applications, patching systems, the multi-factor authentication, and restrict administrative privileges. Now, those two items from the reports I've seen seem to be implicated in one of the reasons why those breaches occurred at Medibank. The lack of MFA, and there were some raised levels of user accounts that had raised privileges within the network. Application control, restrict Microsoft Office macros, user application hardening, and regular backups. So these are the 8 strategies that are recommended that the business is looking at and taking a lot of care about, and making sure that they've got the right strategies in place and the controls in place to manage these strategies. And now, if we jump over, so that is the actual 8 strategies. Now, there is a maturity level. Starts at 0, which is essentially you've got a weak security and easily breached, and you don't have any controls around it. Right the way through to level 3. And so, as a business, you can make a decision. And this is a lot of the times decided in conjunction with board, exec, and IT. Make a decision on the level that you want to achieve within your organisation. And once you're at that level, obviously you need to act on it and get the systems in place, the controls in place to be at that level. And that may include getting rid of some legacy systems and hardware and improving your different security, whether it's at the gateway level, at the device level, help improving the staff knowledge around it as well. And once you're at that level, the next thing is making sure that you're testing and making sure that you're auditing your systems. And so the information that the government have released does include, if we just jump back to Essential 8, does include a bunch of audit documents that you can actually use. And so there's this assessment process guide you can actually download. So these are from level 1 to 3. You then have you've got the report template that's available, and an overview as well, the Essential 8 process guide. So I do recommend having a look at this. It's something that you can look at in your business, review your business, review your security, ask the right questions of IT, but definitely bear in mind that doesn't matter whether you're at a personal level or at a business level, we are at war 24/7 with bad actors that are trying to get into our systems and steal our data and use that data to exploit us. So just make sure that you bear that in mind, because your systems, there are defenses that you can put in place. There's controls that you can put in place that help with stopping these type of incidences occurring. And I certainly do recommend that focus is put on security when it comes to business. There has to be a focus on it, because if there is no focus on this at a business level, at a corporate level, at the board level, at the exec level, at the IT management level, then it's only a matter of time before the weaknesses in your systems are going to be exploited, and you potentially don't have the alert set up that you should be having set up. Data will be extracted from your systems, or worst case, you could get crypto lockers on there, and then suddenly you haven't got access to your data. Your backups potentially may get embroidered in some type of crypto locker as well, which potentially you could lose access to. So there's so many things that need to be looked at, but security must be a focus within business. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope there's something that you can take out of this video, apply it to the questions that you're asking your IT, and I hope it does help in the Essential 8 that is available from cyber.gov.au. Take the time to have a look at it, and I hope it does help with formulating some controls that you can put in place within your business. I look forward to seeing you on future videos, and thank you for taking the time to watch, and I hope you have a good day. Cheers.